It is the night before the NBA draft. The NBA is already in flux. Where do the Orlando Magic go next? We begin pondering those questions, answer your questions here on this live episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is June 24th. It will be June 25th, 2025, also known as Draft Day. I've still got my post-it note from a few years ago somewhere on my desk. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, the host of Locked On Magic. Thank you all for joining us live if you're watching us on YouTube or if you're listening to us on the X Spaces on @OMagicDaily. This was an impromptu live episode. I appreciate everyone who jumps in. Looking forward to answering your questions about the Orlando Magic and their offseason and what comes next. We want to thank you, though, for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, whether you're your first listen of the day, whether we're part of your everyday routine. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. We're all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to make this hour, this whatever time we have here, about you. But let's start with this. Let's start with kind of setting the table for what we're expecting to see on draft night tomorrow. Obviously, 2-night draft. The first round takes place on Wednesday, the second round on Thursday. So we will have a full draft episode recapping what the Magic do or do not do. We'll begin previewing a little bit of the second round and who the Magic might still need to grab and what might still need to happen on our next episode. But the Magic on this draft, the Magic for this draft, have a lot on the table. This is not, even though Orlando traded away the 16th pick to get Desmond Bane, the Magic have a lot on the line. The Magic have a lot that they still need to accomplish. This has been a point that I have been trying to make to people and a point that I've been trying to say to people throughout the course of the last week or so since the Magic acquired Desmond Bane. Getting Desmond Bane is a huge step forward. The Magic are undoubtedly a team that got better already this offseason. Their top four guys are better than what they had last year. But there is still work to do. And I think it is really, really important to know this. The Magic have to get this pick right. The 25th pick in the draft is not usually someone that you're relying on to provide key minutes. But the Orlando Magic have no choice but to get this pick right. And this is what the best teams in the league do. They find players even late in the draft that add to their team, that give them something more. And the reason for that is simple. We've talked about this all summer. We've talked about this all offseason. The Magic are cash-strapped. We are looking at a team that will be over the first apron this season, no doubt, or at the first apron this season. We're looking at a team that is going to be paying the second apron and the luxury tax next season, 2027 season, 2026, 2027. The Magic's ability to spend and add quality players is very, very limited. And if you look at the Magic's depth chart, it is obvious that the Magic still have work to do. The starting lineup looks great. Say what you want about Wendell Carter, but Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Wendell Carter is a really solid starting lineup. That's gonna do some work. And because the Magic now have a little bit more of a top-heavy roster, they're going to be able to run a 9-man rotation. Jamal Mosley won't have to lean on his bench as much. But we also know this. Wendell Carter is going to miss 15 to 20 games. Desmond Bane has an injury history too. He's going to miss 10 to 15 games most likely. Paolo and Franz are tanks, they'll play. Jalen Suggs could miss 15 to 20 games as well. And so if you look to the bench, if you look to the Magic's bench, it's very clear there's work to do. Orlando's bench right now is Anthony Black, is Jet Howard, is Tristan Da Silva, is Jonathan Isaac, is Goga Batadze. Caleb Houston and Mo Wagner still have team options. There's no reporting suggesting there's no reporting on what the Magic plan to do with those. The deadline is June 29th. we do expect that the Magic will decline both options so they can slip under the tax line and gain access to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. I still largely expect both of them to return. I actually think the Magic will end up paying something closer to the taxpayer mid-level exception, about $5 million on a player. But none of the players that I just mentioned that are currently under contract and currently have some security on this team are offensive players. And so the rest of this offseason, the Magic still have to find offensive players, and they have to do it with few assets and few resources. Like I mentioned, if the Magic use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, that's a $14 million. That's contracts adding up to $14 million. You can't use it on multiple players. If you're trying to keep Mo Wagner and Caleb Houston, you eat into that $14 million. The Magic have about, if you use any part of the mid-level of the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, you're hard capped at the first apron. And so that gives the Magic, by my math, roughly $18 million of wiggle room before they hit the first apron. So 14 goes to the mid-level exception. The other 4 go to the remaining players. But that doesn't include the Magic's draft pick, which is a salary of roughly $3 million. That drops that number down to 15. The Magic are not going to use the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception. That would be really, really silly because hard capping yourself at the first apron unnecessarily, when you still have major roster holes to fill, is going to be very, very difficult. I actually do think the Magic are going to probably settle in at that taxpayer mid-level exception is about $5 million. That does not hard cap you at the first apron, so the Magic can re-sign Mo Wagner, keep Caleb Houston, but Orlando's going to need some players to step up. And one of the players they're going to add is that $3 million player that they're going to pick with the 25th pick. So yes, it is a little bit easy to dismiss the 25th pick as, oh, it's just the 25th pick. What are you going to get from that? This is a player that the Magic are going to count on to add something to this team. One way or another, the Magic need the 25th pick to add something to this team. And I imagine I'm already seeing comments here on YouTube. And if you're on the X Spaces, feel free to make a listener request to raise your hand. I'll get you on the show. I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of the options. Walter Clayton Jr., Maxime Reynaud, Jase Richardson, Rasheer Fleming, Cedric Coward, Thomas Sorber, Nolan Traore. The Magic are threading a very fine needle where they need to find a player that fits the needs that they have. Obviously, still shooting, guys that are willing to play defense, fit into this scheme, but also are ready to contribute pretty quickly. That can add something to this team quickly. Because if the Magic miss on this pick, considering they missed on the Jet Howard pick, I think we could say that pretty safely. Considering Anthony Black was a developmental pick, and I think the Magic are rightfully going to expect Anthony Black to be more involved offensively. The Magic still have a lot of work to do to complete this roster. And again, very, very few resources to get it done. Very, very few resources to put themselves in that best position, in that position that they need to finish their roster. The Magic have work to do. And obviously, a lot of it starts on draft night. We are expecting movement. We've already seen a lot of movement in the NBA. The Jordan Poole trade went down today. The Anthony Simons trade went down last night or early this morning, depending on where you were. We're already seeing what we expected to be a very very, very active offseason, be very, very active. And look, the Magic were part of that with this Desmond Bane trade. The Magic, though, need to make sure that they get a lot out of this pick. And so let's dive into your questions about how the Magic attack this offseason and who the Magic should be looking at. I want your questions. I want your response. If you're on YouTube, I will get to your comments here in a second. If you're on the X Spaces, go ahead, raise your hand and ask a question. We'll get you on the show. It's time to go live here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and text from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We are back here on our live episode of Locked On Magic. It's a little bit of a flash episode. I decided to kind of do this very, very, very late in the process. Thank you, everyone who's joined. We got about we got a good number of people in here. Go ahead if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and drop a comment. I already see a good comment from our friend Josh Lloyd of Locked On Fantasy Basketball. If you're on our X Spaces, go ahead and raise your hand. I want to get you on the show, get some more interaction. I want to make sure that I get to all these comments that are being leveled. Let's start with this. This has been a popular comment. Esteban Swan Esquire will lead the charge on this one. He says Clayton or trade the pick. Not interested in anyone else this high up. A lot of people want Walter Clayton Jr. And Walter Clayton Jr. has been a very, very popular pick. Esteban adds, not time to waste time and money developing a player who may or may not pan out. And certainly, look, Walter Clayton is an excellent player. I want to make that very, very clear. He is very, very high on my list. I was a little bit of a Walter Clayton skeptic, even as a Gator fan. I was like, okay, he's a little small. He doesn't have a lot of those kind of point guardish skills, but yeah, he can put the ball in the basket. He's an excellent scorer. Magic need that a little bit on the small side, but the Magic can make do, especially if you're playing him alongside Anthony Black, who's a little bit bigger, maybe can handle a little bit more of those point guard duties. Clayton would absolutely Walter Clayton would help replace Cole Anthony. And I said this at the beginning of the offseason. My perfect offseason had the Magic accomplishing 3 things. The first was find a starting level guard to replace Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or push Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to the bench. Magic did that with Desmond Bane. Summer's off to the big move of the summer, flying success. I think most people would agree Magic did a good job on that deal. Maybe you're upset they gave up so many draft picks, but the talent coming in is really good. It's really, really important. The next step was find an upgrade for Cole Anthony. Find that kind of like spark plug scorer off the bench. And look, I'm toying around with Jonathan Isaac for Jordan Clarkson ideas. There are definitely other ways to get them, but yes, I have zeroed in on the Walter Clayton, Jase Richardson debate as the potential move for the Magic to make here. I really think that those 2 guards really fit what the Magic want to do or what the Magic need from that position. Again, you have Anthony Black to do some of the point guard things. They can help on defense. You'll always have Jalen Suggs or Desmond Bane on the floor with this kind of player. And, again, injuries when healthy, obviously. They're both very, very capable. I would agree with a lot of people. I have Walter Clayton ahead of Jase Richardson on my board because of the size, because of the experience, because I know exactly what I'm getting with Walter Clayton. It's just a matter, and this is a question with every rookie, is are they going to take the next step up? Look, Walter Clayton, I think Walter Clayton is probably more, he feels like the kind of player that NBA people like more than the mock drafts like. I got yelled at for this. I said this during the NCAA tournament that Walter Clayton was probably a 2nd-round pick playing his way into the 1st round. Very clearly what he did in the NCAA tournament and just taking a closer look at his tape, he has pushed himself into the 1st round, very clearly flirting with getting into the 20s. There's mock drafts that had him going 16 to Orlando. There's still mock drafts having him going that high. And as a few people have mentioned, Sam Vecini of The Athletic reporting that Walter Clayton had some workouts in Miami and seemed to cut off communication with everyone. There's a very, very it seems like very, very widely assumed thing that he's not going to make it past 20 to Miami. And so you do have to have backup plans. I mean, look, the Magic traded their control at 16 to stick with 25. 25, you don't have a lot of control. You got to kind of wait to see what the draft gives you. But the Magic, I think, should be looking to trade up. I do think that there's a part of me that after the Bane trade, I said the Magic should probably be looking at trying to use their second round picks and 25 to trade back up into that not 16, obviously, but like 18, 19, 20, 21 range. And again, 20 is where Miami's sitting. You might have to get to 19 to make sure that you get Clayton. But Clayton is definitely, I think, a really high option on the Magic's list and someone that the Magic should be looking at. But you do have to look at other players. James McCormick says his picks are Jase, Fleming, or Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier is really interesting. I don't think he will be there when the Magic pick in the second round, but do watch those second round picks. I think the Magic are going to actually use a second round pick this year. Would not shock me if the Magic are trying to use that second round pick as a two-way contract. And I think they might go after, I'm blanking on his name, but he's been going around Magic circles, the Chinese center. I think that he would be a good two-way option with that second round pick as well. Chaz Lanier is kind of on the border. Wouldn't shock me if the Magic take him at 25. I haven't done a lot of tape on him, but I do know the Magic had him in for a workout. I do know that he is on the radar. Again, kind of like very prototypical Magic guy. But honestly, I've had this conversation with a lot of people too. Rasheer Fleming, I think, is the ideal for the Magic. And, I think that Fleming gives the Magic a big who defends, protects the rim, good stock numbers for him, versatile defender, really improved his three-point shot. He's played 3 years at St. Joseph's. He has been a steady grower and a steadily improving player for St. Joseph's, gotten better each year, really added that three-point shot. There's a lot of scouts that I've read, at least in his scouting report, that believe that his catch-and-shoot three-point shooting is something real. Whether Rasheer Fleming works in the NBA is going to depend on that three-point shooting, but he's the kind of versatile defender the Magic really, really like. And, I've had this conversation with a few people that I really believe that drafting a guy like Fleming gives you permission to trade Jonathan Isaac. And look, I'm a big Jonathan Isaac fan. I like him a ton. The Magic just put out photos of him in the training center. Who knows when those were, but braided Isaac is here, and he looks like he slimmed down a little bit. Isaac's still an elite defender. I don't want to throw him out. But you do need that kind of rangy shot blocking defender next to Mo Wagner. Isaac's still really valuable for that, but is he $15 million valuable? And again, so much of what we're talking about when we talk about the Magic acquiring players now is about salary, where we have to be cognizant of the restrictions of the aprons and all that stuff. I know it's collective bargaining agreement mumbo jumbo, and no one except nerds like me and other people who cover the league really get into this stuff. But that is dictating everything that the Magic are doing. You look at what Boston did with Drew Holiday. Do you think they really wanted to trade Drew Holiday for Anthony Simons? I know I traded for Anthony Simons in the Locked On mock draft. I gave up a lot for him. But I always said, I said throughout that whole process, are you giving up too much defense for that little bit of offensive boost? And at the end of the day, Boston was like, we want to be competitive, but we need to cut our payroll. That's what they did in that move. The purpose of that move was not to get Anthony Simons. It was to trade Drew Holiday. And in fact, it really did feel like, considering Boston, in Portland, I think wanted Drew Holiday. They value Drew Holiday. They don't, they're not competing for free agents. They're looking to get a veteran and someone who's serious to help them improve and build on what they did at the end of last season. I think there was a lot of value in Drew Holiday for Portland in a way that wouldn't be the case for a lot of teams. But it really did feel like Portland paid Boston to take Anthony Simons off their hands, that they had to do the arm wringing to say, here's 2 second-round picks just for taking Anthony Simons. You look at Jordan Poole. He got traded for a negative contract in CJ McCollum. A lot of the guys that we've been talking about don't have as much value as we think on the market. Like Desmond Bane is a very highly sought after, highly thought of player. He cost you 4 first-round picks. Kevin Durant was pigeonholed. He was dictating where he wanted to go. There was no bargaining power for Phoenix in that case. But Anthony Simons was a player Portland was trying to sell off. Jordan Poole is a player that Washington was clearly trying to sell off, and it ended up just being a swap of bad contracts. So, the Magic, I think, do have to be cognizant of, are they getting the bang for their buck with Jonathan Isaac? And can they do better? Can they be more efficient with that spot? And that's, I think, one of the big considerations as we talk about trades. We're going to talk a little bit more about trades coming up here in a minute. I'll get to more of your comments here on the YouTube feed. If you're listening on X Spaces and have a question and want to raise your hand, go ahead and raise your hand and I will add you and let you ask your question. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. There is nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. If you are wanting to update your patio this season, Wayfair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours. Comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space: conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and yes, even the perfect string lights to set the vibe. It's like giving your backyard that resort feel without the resort price tag. We know that about that here in Florida. Whatever you're trying to do, whatever your style is, Wayfair has it. So you can find clean and modern stuff or find that rustic look that you're looking for. Don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. I want to thank everyone who is joining us here live on YouTube for Locked On Magic or on our X Spaces at OMagic Daily. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments on YouTube or raise your hand and join the show. That way. I want to get your questions in about what the Orlando Magic plan to do and what the Magic are hoping to do here on draft night. We got a lot. Thank you, John Constantine, for correcting me that Yang Hansen is the Chinese kid that I was talking about. That we pretty sure the Magic have some interest in. We'll see what happens in the second round. We're going to get to some trade talk, though. I've got a few trade questions here. Samantha asked, odds of trading up. I don't know what those odds are because the Magic expended a lot of their draft capital. So they don't have an extra first round pick to move up. They can't trade any draft picks. All they have are their players. So unless a team really wants Jett Howard, unless a team really wants those 2 second round picks, there's one's in the 40s, one's 58, 57, somewhere in there. Unless a team really wants those picks, it's going to be hard to trade up in this draft. Again, the Magic can really only offer swaps at this point, and the Magic are going to be a very good team. Swaps aren't going to be super, super valuable. So if you're trying to trade up to get Walter Clayton to that 19-18 range so that you can undercut Miami, that's going to be really hard. I just don't see it happening. Again, it depends how badly the Magic want Walter Clayton. I'm a big believer personally that if there's a player you want, go get him. Like, it costs you Tristan da Silva, so what? Costs you, opting in Caleb Houston to get him, go get him. Like, if there is a player that you believe is the missing piece, more often than not, trading for that player or doing what you got to do to get that player, that's what the Magic did with Desmond Bane, after all. That's usually a good move in the draft. So there's definitely a lot to go, but very, very clearly, like, Jeff Weltman is conservative by nature. He's not a big mover and shaker, not a big trader, not a big draft mover. Like, he'll kind of take the draft as it comes to him. So I would not expect the Magic to trade up. I would expect them to pick at 25. And again, like I said, they need cheap contracts. So picking at 25 is probably the right thing to do. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to some of these questions here in a minute. Where did that go? Let's go to this question from Josh Lloyd. We're going to keep on trades here. Josh Lloyd, host of Locked On Fantasy Basketball, asked thoughts on a Fox for Suggs trade to solve. I don't know if this is Josh Lloyd actually from Locked On Fantasy Basketball, so I apologize for that. But he asked thoughts on a Fox for Suggs trade to solve the point guard problem. And this solves kind of two problems because obviously the Spurs are going to probably draft Dylan Harper. And so they'll have Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, and Stephon Castle. Those are 3 high-level guards, and it's going to be very, very hard to keep hold of all of them. I would say this. I don't think the Magic are trading any of their core guys. If the Magic wanted to trade Jalen Suggs, he would have been included in the Desmond Bane trade. He would be included, maybe there is another trade. Maybe there is something in the works, but knowing Jeff Weltman, he's not giving up on this plan. And at the end of the day, the Magic in trading for Desmond Bane, going for a non-point guard, double down on Jalen Suggs as the point guard, double down on this idea. And look, Orlando needs a point guard still. And so I'm not going to deny that this is an issue and this is a problem. Orlando still needs to solve the point guard problem and still needs to think about the point guard problem in a serious way. But I don't think the Magic are going to be in the market to make this kind of a trade right now. Now, this is the kind of trade I would see the Magic doing next summer if things don't work out and they're like, well, we do really need a point guard. If the contracts match and because Jalen Suggs' contract is descending and De'Aaron Fox's contract is ascending, he's about to sign a new contract and a new extension too. It's going to be hard to pull off this kind of a deal. But I think De'Aaron Fox is very much a player who could wriggle free if the Spurs guards develop the way that they hope they will. And again, San Antonio, I think, is trying to win now too. So it's hard to figure out. It is a good idea. I would put it in my back pocket. I would not think that it's going to happen in this cycle, in this offseason cycle. But, to the annoyance of our list, of my readers, and I appreciate everyone sticking with it, there is definitely this undercurrent, if you're looking too far into the future, that yes, Jalen Suggs is kind of the odd man out. The Magic need a point guard. They're going with a non-point guard at point guard. They're doing this point guard by committee thing. If the Magic eventually do decide, hey, we need a point guard, Jalen Suggs is the guy that you move to get one. That does feel, I don't want to say inevitable, but it's a concern that's hanging around. I don't think the Magic are there yet, though. I think that is still a decision that is at least a year, probably 2 years away. That we've always kind of said Jalen Suggs was the Marcus Smart of this team, that the heart and soul guy that maybe doesn't have the skill that you need to get over the hump into the NBA Finals, and that you move to get that player. Because remember, Marcus Smart netted the Celtics Kristaps Porzingis, huge deal that got them into the NBA Finals. So definitely something to look at. Mr. Dari C asks on YouTube here, who are some free agents or trade targets that haven't been discussed ad nauseum? Obviously, the big one that's been discussed a lot is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We are expecting and suspecting that he will get the full mid-level exception, which I do think takes him out of the Magic's price range. I have been toying around with some Jonathan Isaac trade ideas. I was just looking at guys who are paid $15 million a year. That opens the door to like Jordan Clarkson. That opens the door to Bogdan Bogdanovic. That opens the door to Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen doesn't do it for me. Bogdan Bogdanovic, not a great defender, but one of the best three-point shooters in the league. That's the kind of specialist that I'd be looking for. PJ Washington would also be in that group. I know PJ Washington also extension eligible. Dallas took care of Daniel Gafford. Maybe they're looking to reconfigure their center rotation a little bit. Jonathan Isaac fits them a little bit better, perhaps, especially with their defensive identity that they want to embrace. So there are options. And I think that's, I haven't done the deep dive into free agency. Like I've done some deep dives into end of summer guys. Like I think Tyus Jones is a real option. I think you could get him for the taxpayer mid-level exception, or you could even get him for the minimum again. Getting him at the minimum would be a steal and would be a huge boost to this team, but he's not a defender that's going to help you in the playoffs. And I think that matters a lot to the Magic. If the Magic do trade Goga Bitadze, he's about $8 million salary. I think that the Magic would go after Paul Reed. I know he's a local kid, but local kid, I think he went to Wekiva High School or he's from the Apopka area. He's had some good runs with Phoenix or Philadelphia. He had a good run with Detroit last year. Would be a solid third center. Again, bring him in on a small contract, minimum deal. Not, I'm thinking on the back end stuff. I'm not thinking about the big thing. I was pitched another Colin Sexton trade today. A Jonathan Isaac for Colin Sexton trade needs a little bit of work. The Magic would have to add some salary. They'd have to add Jet Howard. Maybe they'd have to take something back. But, we talked about Colin Sexton as the big get for the offseason. They could still get him. They can still mathematically go get him. And again, I think this is really important. Like all of these things are happening on the same track. So trade talks, free agency, the draft, they're all happening at the same time. And so, yes, I'm a big believer in the draft. You take the best player available. You don't think too hard about it. If you have the best player on your board fit you can figure out and fits part of your consideration of who's your best on your board, you go get that. And so I think part of what goes into that equation is what else the Magic have cooking. And I do believe the Magic are cooking something else. I think that they have something else. I think they do have something else on the table. I think that they do have something else to do this offseason. It wouldn't shock me if they go get a Colin Sexton. I think he's at $18 million salary, maybe a little bit less, maybe on the lower end of that. They can swing that. You can find a way to make that happen. And so this is still an opportunity to be aggressive, to add something significant to your bench and really complete your roster. Again, I'm a big believer that the Magic have to get this draft night right, regardless of the Desmond Bane trade now, because they need to keep adding to their roster. Their roster is not complete. It is not ready for the season. They still need more offense because, as people are noting, the Magic are a championship level team now. They're expected to be a championship level team. Our friends at FanDuel list the Magic with the 5th best odds to win the NBA championship. Forget the East. 5th best odds to win the NBA championship next year. They are 3rd in the Eastern Conference behind Cleveland and New York. This is a team that made a bold move that has gotten positive news, positive reviews, seems to have really fixed a lot of the Magic's issues. And again, we'll find out in October and November. But this is a team that believes it is about to take a major, major step. Another name that I haven't really done my deep dive on yet, Scott Woodward notes Kobe Brea from Kentucky. Kentucky guards always do well. Just ask Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Definitely on the radar. I don't think he will be there when the Magic pick in the second round. Definitely a sleeper pick for the first round for that 25th pick. Again, an excellent shooter, as Scott mentions here. Definitely an option for the Magic. I believe he's a guard. Don't quote me. I haven't done my full study on him. This is another pitch that's been asked here. Maybe LA wants a pick. I'd be down to package picks and jet for Austin Reeves, maybe J.I. Austin Reeves is one of those players that fits the J.I. salary slot. He's paid a little bit less than J.I., so that works for the Magic. I think the Lakers are over the apron, so there have to be some maneuvering done to make that work. But the problem with Austin Reeves, and this is the problem with Colin Sexton, this was the problem with Anthony Simons. Austin Reeves is an expiring contract. He is looking for a salary of $30 million or more. He does not want to come off the bench. He does not believe he should be coming off the bench. If he comes to Orlando, he's coming off the bench. Will that make him happy? Probably not. Will he resign here? No. And part of whoever you add, whether it's Sexton, whether it's Reeves, whoever, you're looking to keep them for the long term. One of the reasons the Magic did the Desmond Bane trade, one of the reasons why Bane was the option, was the guy that they went for, is he is under contract for 4 more years. If for whatever reason this does not work out, they can keep him. They can move him again. They can flip him again, and still kind of keep that salary slot and still kind of have that money to move around. They're going to be a second apron team. This is the last summer for the Magic to really add substantial salary because of the cap restrictions, because of all those rules that only Keith Smith, knows and teaches me about. This is the last summer for the Magic to make those moves, but they don't want to be too deep into the second apron. It's going to happen probably June 30th, probably the first thing that Shams reports, 6:00, June 30th. Paolo Banchero is going to sign his max extension. That's going to take him to $42 million if he doesn't make All-NBA. He's going to make All-NBA. He's going to make $51 million. The Orlando Magic are a second apron team next year. There's going to be a little bit of a push perhaps to cut some salary next year. So this is definitely a season where the Magic should be a little bit more in the next season. But you don't want to go grab a guy like Austin Reeves unless he actually wins you a championship and then let him walk for nothing next season, because you can't make that money back up. You're just under the apron. So, again, maybe Caleb Houston has a really nice year and you're comfortable with that, or Jett Howard shows some life and you're like, oh, we can push Jett Howard to the front, or you draft a Kobe Brea or a Jase Richardson or Walter Clayton. You're really comfortable with that guard rotation again. And you're like, you know what? We can let Austin Reeves walk. It's fine. The Magic are going to have to make some of these decisions. I don't think they want to make that decision now, or they don't want that decision made for them now, because again, Reeves is looking for a big, 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 big contract, and all that stuff really, really matters. I am going through here, the comments here on YouTube. I want to thank everyone for joining this live episode. Thank you for the Flash live episode. Appreciate everyone who joined the show, made a comment talking here. Certainly, if you want to jump in on at the X Spaces as well, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get you on the show there that way too. I think you can still do that. If you can't, please let me know, because I don't know how X Spaces really works. I'm trying to learn this again. Just looking at that. Duval T87 asks on X Spaces, if Clayton is gone, how much do you like Richardson at 25? I really, since the trade of Desmond Bane, I've kind of been under the impression of the Magic should try and trade up to make sure that they get Jase Richardson or Walter Clayton. If the Magic can get Jase Richardson at 25, I think that's a really good value. I like Jase's ability to create his own shot, get to his spots, finishes really efficiently at the rim. Really, the only issue with Jase Richardson, the only reason he's in the 20s is his size. He measured at 6'1.5". 6'1.5" at the combine without shoes. So he's probably 6'1", 6'2" with shoes. And, had a 6'6" wingspan. So good wingspan, really good athlete, good, efficient finisher at the rim, especially for his height. It's just, is he going to be too much of a target on defense? And I think Orlando can balance that by playing him next to Anthony Black, like playing him always with Jalen Suggs or Desmond Bane. So you can't hunt him as much. But we also got to think about the playoffs. And one of the issues Cole Anthony had in the playoffs is, Cole Anthony tried his hardest on defense. I loved how he improved as a defender over his years in Orlando. He was still the target every single time against Cleveland or against Boston. They targeted him on defense. And, again, that's just kind of what the NBA is now, because you switch so much, you kind of pick your matchup and attack it. And Cole became really unplayable in the playoffs. And that made things very, very difficult. Another big question here. Adrian Crawford on YouTube asks, Malik Monk is available, and we should try to get him. Unlike Reeves, Monk is under contract. Now, his contract is a little bit more expensive at $20 million, so Orlando would have to add something else to the deal on top of like a Jonathan Isaac to make the money work. It would have to be Goga and Isaac. And so, again, I don't know if the Magic want to put that much capital, because they have so many roster spots to fill. They really have 2 more players that they must fill. They probably need 3 players. And so to give up more rotation players, even for a player of Monk's quality and caliber, that's a lot. But Monk coming off the bench would be really, really good for this team. From my understanding, Malik Monk was the guy the Magic wanted last year. And when he signed the new contract with Sacramento, they pivoted to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So I would, even though Monk didn't have the greatest year last year, I do think there would be some lingering interest. I think one of the reasons that Monk signed with Sacramento instead of going to Orlando is Orlando wanted him for 3 years. Monk wanted a 4-year deal. Sacramento gave him that 4-year deal. So he's got a few more years left on his deal. So that gives the Magic some security. Again, the ability to flip him again later if they so choose. There's definitely something there. A lot of talk here on our comments to trade Wendell Carter. I think that'll be the next big debate that happens. Y'all know me. I'm a Wendell Carter stan. I defend Wendell Carter a lot. I think he gives the Magic things defensively that they're really looking for, but for the right deal, I think they will do just about anything. I don't think that right deal is going to come. I think the Magic are really satisfied with their starting lineup, and I think they want to bolster their bench. But as some people are pointing out, yes, Wendell Carter's contract makes a significant jump next season, not this season, not the 2026 season. One of the reasons the Magic will be a second apron team is Wendell Carter jumps to from 11 or 12 million to 18, 19 million in the summer of 2026 for the 2027 season. That's, again, it's not a significant amount of the cap. It's just, you also now have Paolo at 51, probably at 51. That makes things a little bit more difficult. And so, you're in the apron, you're in the second apron, you're dealing with these consequences, that you do have to think a little bit up. Let's see here. Let's see what else we got here. Aaron Lewis says, need any 7-foot center and 25 who can shoot. There is one 7-foot center who can shoot, and that's Maxime Reynaud of Stanford. Really, really like him. Good shot blocker. Had a really good season at Stanford. Led the ACC in rebounding last year, which is not an easy thing to do. Good inside game. Can make threes. Has really developed to be able to step out and shoot threes. We'll see if he can do it at the NBA level. Free throw percentage checks out that he might be able to. Big concern with him is he got a little bit out-muscled in the matchup with Duke against Kaman Malawak. He's coming off the bench, so maybe you don't need as much. But I do think the Magic are going to shy away from the centers because Mo Wagner's not going to play till Christmas at the earliest. I don't think we'll see him until Christmas. The issue with that then is when Wendell Carter has to miss 15, 20 games, which, again, he had a healthy season last year. He had an early injury, but he played the most games he's played in his career last year. Inevitably, Carter's going to miss some time. So you do have to be at least a little bit cognizant of that. So definitely something to think about there. Here's a mechanical question. I get this question a lot, even from my journalist friends. Esteban Swan Esquire asks, so if required to draft someone this year, can we still trade their rights on draft night? The answer is yes. So this is the Stepien rule. The Stepien rule is Ted Stepien was the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers back in the 80s, and he just shipped off first-round picks and made the Cavs perpetually really bad. And so the NBA, in one of their collective bargaining agreements, set up this rule that prohibited teams from trading their first-round pick in consecutive years. So that means you can only you can't trade your first-round pick in advance in consecutive years. So when you look at the picks that the Magic traded, they're all even-numbered years: 2026, 2028, 2030. And then this year's pick, because the Magic have a pick this year. So essentially, you have to own and control a first-round pick every other year. And that's why that 2029 year is a pick swap, because the Magic will still control and own their pick. It's just swapped. There's a swap option on it. So if the Magic do want to trade out of this year's draft at 25, they have to physically make the pick first. But once you make the pick, it's fair game. Once that pick is made, you can do whatever you want with it. So yes, the Magic can still shop around 25 and say, oh, we're trading this pick. We're trading this pick for something. It just has to be agreed to, and then they're picking for another team. So like, let's say Houston's trying to jump back into the draft for whatever reason. I'm just using them as a random example. The Magic will make the pick. Houston will tell the Magic who they want them to pick. The Magic will call that pick into the office. Then they'll get on the trade call and trade the draft rights to that player. So it's a mechanical thing. Most things are mechanical, like the Magic declining the team options on Mo Wagner and Caleb Houston. That is to get them under the tax line. They can still re-sign them. They can still re-sign Gary Harris and Corey Joseph if they want. Wouldn't completely shock me if that's part of the plan, but that's what gets you under the tax line so you can have access to other things. So definitely a good question. Get that question a lot. Here's another question about Mac McClung. Mac McClung should get a real shot to make the 15. I'll say this. Mac McClung deserves a spot in the NBA. He deserves a shot at the NBA. If he was going to get that shot, the Magic would have given it to him. And they didn't give it to him last year. I think Mac McClung, I did not understand Mac McClung coming back to Orlando on the two-way contract. I was like, he's not going to get an opportunity here. Hopefully another team gives him an opportunity. Very clearly, it's not going to be the Magic. So I hate to say that. I like Mac McClung. I want him to do well. He has earned a spot in the NBA. I don't know why he decided to sign with the Magic. He wasn't going to get that spot, but there you go. We'll see what he does. We'll see what else we can get. I'm going through our comments here. See the Royce O'Neal for Goga idea. I've had Royce O'Neal very, very high on my list for a very, very long time. It's just, making sure you get a starter caliber center. Look, Paul Reed's out there. I'm cool with bringing Paul Reed in. I think that would make sense. Let's see here. This is the big, question. What makes us think that we will get 25 right? Cole, Chuma, J.I. J.I. I think did go right. Injuries happen. But yeah, Jeff Weltman's draft history is not particularly strong. He's done really good with the important stuff. But, I wrote about this the other day. The draft 2 years ago, 2022, 2023 was a bad draft. Look, Anthony Black still looks like a serviceable player, but he is not the player the Magic need right now. The Magic are hoping he takes a major leap in his third year. Through 2 years, we haven't really seen what that looks like. We haven't seen him show enough flashes and show enough consistency to make us confident. I'm not confident with Anthony Black in more than the role that he had last year. I expect him to be better at the role that he had last year, but I'm not confident that Anthony Black's going to step up his scoring. What evidence do we have that he'll do that? Jett Howard, complete swing and a miss. I get why they made the pick. I understand the logic behind it. And I'm a big believer of As long as you act logical, the draft is just educated guessing. Some people are better at guessing than others. But Jett Howard has not worked out. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There is no evidence the Magic can get these picks right until they do. Once they get the one pick right, then you're a draft genius. But the Magic do have to get this pick right. I'm a full believer on that. The Magic do need to get this pick right. And so that'll be a big thing. Yeah, there's that. What trade are we not thinking of that Weltman's going to make? Again, I know I said this a bunch when we were all talking Anthony Simons and all the obvious names. It's never the obvious guys. If it was obvious, it'd be done. So there's definitely something that we'll see. Let's see here. I'm trying to see what other comments we have. If you have anything else you want to say, we're going to wrap up here very, very soon. Cash Out Isaiah asks on YouTube, how do you see the Magic using their second round picks this year? I see them trading one of them. I do think that depending on who's there, and there are some interesting second round guys. Like, this is a deep draft. Like, I do really like this draft. I'm very, very, very happy with this draft class, and frankly, with the options the Magic have. Like, I'm not crazy about Jase Richardson, but Magic at Jase Richardson at 25, great pickup, great ad. I do expect them they have two-way spots open. They have Ethan Thompson on a two-way contract and then two-way spots open. I would expect them to use one of those two-way spots on their second round pick or try and convince their second round pick to take a two-way spot. That way he's still with the team, still able to do things, but they get him at a lower contract. They give him a development year. They put him in a place where he can get playing time because he's not going to get playing time with the main roster. So I think that's a possibility. We're going to see. I don't, there are a lot of interesting second round picks. I need to catch up on them. I'm still kind of catching up on some of my draft stuff, as you can tell. I'll do a deeper dive on that after Wednesday night as we get ready for Thursday in the second round, because we got all day to get ready for that. So we'll see what the Magic do. I see some pitches to sign Kevin Porter Jr. Don't hate that idea. I'm not in love with it though, but I've had that suggested to me on several occasions. I don't hate it. Again, it's just price. It's about price. And this is why I'm not calling you out here, Doc Blount. Don't need any rookies, trade the picks. I agree. Magic shouldn't be so reliant on rookies. Rookies have to earn their way. But the problem is the Magic are expensive now. And if you can get cheap players that do a lot for you, you're in better shape. The Pacers are where they are because Andrew Nembhard was cheap. The Thunder are where they are because Aaron Wiggins is cheap, because they were able to maximize these late picks. And that's something the Magic have not done well enough with Jeff Weltman. Now that the Magic are an apron team, now that the Magic are flirting with these financial restrictions, any cheap contract they get has to be good. They have to deliver on that pick. So we'll see about that. I see a Dennis Schroeder call. Always happens. It's possible. Again, I think Dennis Schroeder wants to be a starter. And frankly, go look at Dennis Schroeder's career. Any place where he does not have the ball in his hands the majority of the time, he struggles. So do you want to take the ball out of Anthony Black's hands? Maybe you do. I'm cool with that. If Dennis Schroeder wants to come off the bench, play a second unit with Franz and Bane, or Franz, Black, and whoever, maybe that works. Maybe this is the time to do it. But again, so much of it is about how much does he want to get paid? Does it work under the cap? Does it work under the first apron restrictions that the Magic are under? Those are the ultimate big questions. Again, I want to stress this. The Magic have about 18. If the Magic decline team options on Mo Wagner and Caleb Houston, they have about $18 million of room before the first apron. $3 million of that goes to the rookie, to the 25th pick. So that is $15 million max the Magic have to spend. The non-taxpayer mid-level exception is $14 million. The taxpayer mid-level exception, I believe, is about $5 or $6 million. If you use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, you're hard capped at the first apron. So that's why I specify that number. You still got to re-sign Mo Wagner. If you want to re-sign Caleb Houston, you got to re-sign him. So you don't even have that full, you have $15 million total to spend. If Mo Wagner was paid $11 million last year, maybe you're trying to get him back on a lower amount. That's still $10 million. You might as well only use the non-taxpayer, might as well only use the taxpayer mid-level exception this summer. And that's only $5 million. So there is a lot of work. There is a lot of work for the Magic to do. Very, very limited resources to do it. And the Magic are going to have to get some work done. And that's why this draft is so important. I have reached the end of my comment stream here on YouTube. I don't see any hands raised on Twitter, on X. So I want to thank everybody for watching today's episode of Locked On Magic, listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic Live. If you did so, I want to thank you for listening to it recorded. If you did so, you can always find Locked On Magic wherever you download podcasts. This is a good question. No, Franz cannot pay Mo. That is a circumvention of the cap. That's how you get draft picks taken away. Bad idea. Don't do that. Franz cannot pay Mo. That's out of the question. That is a contravention of the cap. So can't do that. But I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode, watching today's episode of Locked On Magic, whether you're listening to it live or on the recorded version. Truly appreciate everyone who joined the show live. Again, kind of a snap thing. Really appreciate it. Had some good answers, good responses, good questions here. I may try and sneak that into an article as well for Orlando Magic Daily for tomorrow to get us going for draft night. But I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. As I start my ending spiel again, you can, of course, follow me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them. You download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen today, go make your next listen, the Locked On NBA podcast, where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining the show live. If you joined the show live on YouTube or on X Spaces, truly appreciate all the questions, all the comments, everything else. Truly appreciate it. We'll do more of these throughout the offseason. I do like doing these. I just have to get going doing them as well. Please let me know what times work for you. I hope dinner time is good, and hopefully the sun is not coming too far into my building. But that's going to do it for me today. We'll be back on Thursday to recap what the Magic did in the first round on Locked On Magic. We'll have plenty more on OrlandoMagicDaily.com. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.